Hello, I'm Nathan P. Butler, author of A Saga on Home Video and host of From the Star Wars Home Video Library here on YouTube, and this is Star Wars Home Video Year by Year. This time we take a look at 1991, and 1991 is huge for Star Wars in general. This is the year that we finally see the beginning of what's referred to sometimes as the expanded universe, the official continuity, at least prior to the reboot, the Legends continuity, now post-reboot. Basically, up until this point, starting with the novelization of A New Hope back in 1976, there had been Star Wars stories in comic strips, in comic books, in novels, and so on, in role-playing games. But they were all sort of disjointed. They weren't meant to necessarily connect together. The Marvel stuff would reference the Marvel stuff, for example. The novels would reference themselves, and so on. There wasn't really a cohesive whole to it quite yet. Not many media franchises had really tried to do anything like that for any kind of official continuation that really interwove different media types together. Star Wars, however, starting in 1991, did. That, of course, launched with two items that, oddly enough, for my old collection I still have here in signed form, which is Heir to the Empire by Timothy Zahn. Timothy Zahn there. And then Dark Empire from Dark Horse Comics by Tom Veitch. This continuity would go on to grow, to eventually sort of weave in a lot of that earlier stuff, first in a questionable sense, and then finally sort of more officially along the way, and continue, even technically to this day. Yes, there was a reboot that launched a new canon continuity and labeled that continuity as Legends, but even now, the Star Wars The Old Republic MMO continues with new stories set in that universe. It is one of the longest-running, cohesive sci-fi universes in existence. And it all began in 1991. And I know it well. I love it well. I spent, 20 years of my life from 97 until retiring from it in 2018. I spent 20 years of my life chronicling that stuff in the Star Wars Timeline Gold, the last edition of which is still up on my website, starwarsfanwars.com/timeline. It's one of these things that I collected for years and years and years. Eventually, I sold off the bulk of my collection because it used to take up this space. If you watch any of my early From the Star Wars Home Video Library videos, you'll see the books in the background, not the home video stuff. But as beloved as that continuity and that publishing line was, that's not home video. So it was a big year for Star Wars in 1991. What about Star Wars home video in 1991? No. Not even close. In fact, we don't really see any noteworthy releases out of the United States at all. There's only really a couple of things on the international scene for us to take a look at, one of which, though, is one of the most rare Star Wars items you could possibly collect for Star Wars home video. As we saw in recent episodes, in 1986 and 87, Japan got the entire original trilogy in widescreen CAV standard play format laserdiscs in what's referred to as the Special Collection. In the US, we got Laserdisc widescreen editions, CLV extended play for the special widescreen edition in 1989 and 1990, though again there were some flaws with the A New Hope version that wouldn't be fixed still here for a few years. We hadn't seen anything like that on VHS, and we won't actually see a VHS widescreen edition until the following year, 1992. But the UK beat us to the punch in 1991 with their own special widescreen edition of the films on VHS. So that in and of itself is noteworthy across the pond. Now the UK would get a boxed set of these widescreen releases, but that does not appear to have happened until 1992 based on the copyright date of the copy I have, so we'll look at that next time. Speaking of foreign markets, another product line you may see from time to time is Japanese VHS cassettes, which I haven't collected many of over time, but in Japan, you had the Best Library collection in 1991 that included the original trilogy films. Now this in and of itself, kind of neat, I suppose, but just like what we saw in 1986 where we saw the all-time greats series that included the original trilogy on VHS and how that jumped off into another very rare format, the same takes place here in Japan in 1991 with the Best Library series, which gives us one of the single most rare Star Wars home video items you could possibly collect. That is the Japanese Best Library, same product line, Video 8 series. We have A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. Again, on those little Video 8 8mm cassettes that have no US equivalent for Star Wars. Now, that isn't to say that America didn't have Video 8 film releases, just not for Star Wars. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom got one, that one being put out through Paramount Home Video, and they were even used as training cassettes for Pizza Hut during a Phantom Menace promotion in 1999. We just don't have any retail releases of the Star Wars films in the US on Video 8. Again, Video 8 and Video 2000/V2000/VCC are probably the two single most rare home video formats for Star Wars for current collectors, with Video 8 just barely edging out V2000. It is noteworthy, by the way, though, even though we won't really see this impact until next year for the US, that if you look at these UK Special Widescreen Edition copies, you'll see a new company logo down in the corner. Same thing with these out of Japan. We've gone from Magnetic Video Corporation being sort of reworked and folded into 20th Century Fox Video. Then 20th Century Fox Video giving way to CBS Fox Video. Now, starting in 91, we have Fox Video, sort of a splitting back up again. So names changing along the way. We'll see this reflected next year for the US, but we can see it already here in 91 in foreign markets. So a great year broadly for Star Wars in general, not so much for Star Wars on home video, but the UK does beat the US to the punch on widescreen VHS releases, and Japan puts out, again, a Video 8 Trilogy, one of the most rare Star Wars collectibles out there for home video collections. But this was sort of a calm before the storm, because as I mentioned, we'd be seeing a letterbox release, a widescreen release on VHS in the US the following year. So join us next time as we take a look at 1992.